Hi, I'm Nina Rowan Heller, and welcome to Energy Advantage 2020 Session 10. Today we're going to talk about organized emotions. And after having the live chat that we did today, I wanted to make sure and start this chat from a place of understanding. I think it's great to be emotional. I think the difference oftentimes where people are connecting you're being emotional or you're too sensitive is when we actually aren't organized emotionally. And that may sound a little bit like I'm a person who likes to be organized, and I do. But what I also think is that there is a way to be sensitive, empathic, and emotional without actually feeling like it's chaos and you have no control over it. So it doesn't mean that you suppress your emotions and push them down. It means that you're actually having your emotions, but you are clicking about understanding what's going on so you can be more effective. So we've been talking about understanding our emotions during this time, releasing emotions. That's what we talked about last week, was the ways to release emotions, how we move, walk, exercise. Those are the kinds of things that release emotions. Then you have things like talking or journaling. That's a release of emotions. We talked about crying or being angry, and those are different ways. Crying is sort of the way that we have pushed something down and then we sort of release it. Angry is very much exerting your emotions out into the world and sharing them with everybody else. Breathing, which is why exercise and movement work, that's a good way of releasing emotion. And finally, the one that we had talked about last week a lot that I am a big fan of, laughing, which is the way that we don't have to actually have any knowledge at all. We just start, when we laugh, we are releasing and we feel better. So those are the ways about releasing emotion. And even in that structure of here are some ways to release emotion, there was a wonderful thing that was brought up today on our live chat about really what was the perfect execution of emotion, which I wanted to share because I thought that is super helpful. There are ways that when we're having an emotional experience and you want to be helpful, it can oftentimes, someone is being emotional around you, it'd be really easy just to join them and be in that. And what the example that was brought up today was about someone who was grieving, and the person they wanted to speak to also was having some heavy duty grief issues. But that person wanted to stay in a place of really being helpful. So really managing and paying attention. Is this mine or someone else's? How do I feel? Okay, so this is mine. I've got my grief, and then I've got this other person's. Understanding that. Also understanding to stay in that place of, I'm going to breathe and I'm going to help this person by being there for them. That was my intent. That's what I want to do, rather than just become a puddle of grief with them. And then taking the time to then say, let's go for a walk and talk. And by doing that, able to process the person's emotions that were happening and the internal emotions about her own grief, to be able to share that and release that. So going on a long walk managed that whole scenario, which could have been completely different. And she said this, if she had been sitting in a coffee shop or sitting in an office and managing it that way, there's no place to process or release emotions. So that's a great opportunity to see how that comes into practice, not just for your own emotions that may be stored, but in working with others and being available to others, to be helpful to others, to understand your emotions and theirs. So going back to what I started talking about, which was initially that being emotionally organized is a way of having your power and being able to continue to do what you want to do and help others. So you have empathy. It's just a more organized way of having emotions. So one thing that's helpful for me to think about is the way we lose energy. And you'll hear me talk about this, that there's 3 big ways we lose energy: is being angry, being misunderstood, or rushing. And in this world, we are super easy to merge into the lane of rushing, which is one of the things that we've gotten away from during this time, which has been really nice. Being angry or being misunderstood, you can understand how both of those feel. If you just think about when you're angry about something, if somebody's really angry, you can feel, you don't feel grounded and empowered. You're angry. It's like you almost don't have control over it. Being misunderstood, that's one that for me is something that I practice all the time, because if I'm working on educating, there's a line that I have to be really aware of about convincing. And, I've been doing this over 25 years and I still find myself sometimes going, you're trying to convince too hard. And that's because I care. I care about helping people. And if I see someone that is struggling or having a challenge, sometimes it's really hard for me not to try to convince them. And that is that energy of being misunderstood. If they would just understand, they'd be able to do this, or they'd be able to make the change, or they would see. So being angry, being misunderstood, rushing, those three things are the ways that we lose life force. So going back to being powerful and being emotional versus emotionally chaotic, organized emotion. If you understand those three things, sometimes that can help you navigate. We are increasing our awareness about what's mine or yours. That's one of the questions we ask. Is this my emotion that I'm feeling, or is this your emotion? That helps. If you are working on being present for someone, but this is a girlfriend or a guy friend that is in a bad relationship and you've had this conversation with them countless times, and you find yourself that you're in a situation where you are maybe getting angry, but also being misunderstood because you've given them the same advice, or they've asked you for counsel and you have told them, but they've never done it. So you are feeling misunderstood. You feel that energy pull that you're using. And then rushing, if we are really in a time sensitive schedule, because we're being really good about keeping our schedule, that we're trying to get things done in a certain way, it's actually not necessarily showing up for what is that person's time. So in that organized emotion, there's a pace to emotions. And if you are a person that is being present for someone else, you have the opportunity to guide the pace. And that can change whether or not it's rushing feeling or chaos feeling. And so those things, if you look at being angry, being misunderstood, or rushing, you can look at how you're expressing emotions in times where you want to be supportive of others, or you just want to understand your own emotions. So again, looking at being angry, being misunderstood, or rushing as a person who says, let's just go through a scenario in my world that you're walking out, because this is a time right now that there's a lot of ambiguity and confusion and nobody really knows exactly what we're doing for the future. So not having that consistency, you're feeling people's pressure. And out of that, they may be having emotions that you're ending up showing up and interacting, or being on a phone call or a Zoom, or being around them, and they are trying to convince you of something, a position, or they just are very frustrated. And if you want to be that person to be there for them, it is a matter of going through your list of, is this mine or someone else's? When you're hearing somebody, okay, that's somebody that's really angry. And so that's theirs. I'm okay. I've got some stuff, but that's not what's on the top for me. And am I rushing to try to, I don't want to have this conversation right now. I'm exhausted. I'm over this. Is there a way to actually address that? Which is, maybe it might be acknowledging the situation. This sounds like a really long conversation. This sounds like a conversation that needs more time. Not, this sounds like a long conversation. That sounds bad. This sounds like a conversation that needs more time. I'd like to give you 100% of my time. Can we continue this at this time? So that you're, again, organizing the pace, the being misunderstood, in really clarifying questions where you're asking people and you're asking yourself. Those are the things you clarify with others. Just go ahead and clarify with you. When you're trying to convince somebody and you hear yourself, you can ask the clarifying question, am I trying to make them believe the same thing I do, understand what I'm saying? All of that, you can kind of reel that back in. Again, you can control that, whether or not you're losing that life force by being angry, misunderstood, or rushing. Because that's really your power. If we just say you're losing power, being angry, being misunderstood, or rushing, in organizing all these feelings that you have, if you can understand whether or not you are in any of those three areas, that will help you understand whether or not you have power. If you are really going through, is this mine or someone else's, so that you can help them. If you're really paying attention to, wow, I've got some kind of feeling, I don't know what it is, I need to walk, exercise, breathe, all the other ways of releasing, talking, journaling. All of this is a way to have organized tools to continue to be sensitive, emotional beings in a world that is changing dramatically, has a lot of chaos, lots of emotions that are negative, maybe angry. But it gives us an opportunity for us to shine and be able to work through this and process. And it's my belief that the more people that are actually being sensitive and being emotional and connected to people, that all these changes that we're having will have solutions to them, and we will come up with the new norm. We just aren't sure what that is yet. But by doing these exercises and paying attention to yourself in your emotions and organized emotions rather than chaos, releasing emotions, it's much more likely that we can use our brain power in order to come up with solutions. So I'm Nina Rowan Heller. Thanks so much. Take care.